preparing to stream. Let's see.
Oh, it says we're streaming live.
Yay. Okay, there we go. All right. Hello, everybody. I have the incredible privilege of having Stephanie here. She is a certified nutritional practitioner who works with women to balance their hormones naturally without having an ablation, doing birth control, or having to have a hysterectomy. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Would you mind sharing just a little bit about who you are and who you work with and what you do? And then we'll just kind of dive right in.
Yeah, for sure. Well, my name is Stephanie Singh. As Andrea mentioned, I'm a certified nutritional practitioner. I'm also certified in clinical detoxification, in Dutch hormone testing, and I've also recently incorporated stool testing into my practice, which is so exciting, and a lot about, I think, what we're going to be talking about today. I'm very in line with what we're talking about today. But ultimately, I help women to stop the monthly struggle, the heavy, long, painful periods, the PMS, the PMDD, all of the things that kind of go along with our hormonal fluctuations that I think as a society, we've really started to identify as being normal, which it isn't. Common does not mean normal. And ultimately helping them to get off that struggle bus without hormonal birth control, without ablations, without a hysterectomy, because that's frankly what was pushed down my throat when I was struggling all of those years ago. And there are better solutions, natural solutions that work in harmony with your body versus against the natural physiology of your body.
Absolutely. And I love that because we both work very similarly with our clients and have similar methodologies and practice. Even, our credentials are different, but I think both of our modalities, kind of our drive for creating a process for people, was really birthed out of your own pain, and our own experience of feeling very frustrated with the medical system and feeling very not listened to, and like, why are the pieces of this puzzle not making sense? So do you want to share a little bit about, I know I didn't actually ask this before. Do you want to share a little bit, just maybe a few minutes, on what that struggle was like for you and what kind of pushed you into what you're doing now?
Yeah, for sure. A bit about my history. So I actually was on hormonal birth control for about 12 years before I had my first daughter. I didn't know then what I know now. I was 17 at the time when my doctor gave me the birth control pill, wrote me that prescription. And looking back, it is astounding to me that she never made the connection to my genetic predisposition to things like autoimmunity, to cancers, to cardiovascular disease, which the pill ultimately increases the risk factors for. So it just blows my mind that those connections were never connected. And I was on hormonal birth control for 12 years, really oblivious to all of that. So I had my first daughter. I should also mention, after I stopped taking the pill, it took me almost a year for my period to actually return.
Wow. Another red flag, right?
Big time. And then when it did, it was a 6-week cycle, 6 weeks to the day. So every 42 days I was having a period. And at the time I was like, okay, well, this kind of sucks because I want to have a baby. So this is just kind of reducing the opportunity for me to get pregnant, right? That's all that was in my mind at the time. At that point in my life, I was working in a corporate job. So what I'm doing now is my second career, which was born out of my experience after I had my first daughter. So after my daughter was born, I thankfully didn't struggle to get pregnant, aside from the fact that my cycles were, 6 weeks instead of 4. I didn't really struggle getting pregnant, but after she was born, that's when I really started to notice struggling with. And I think it was because it was really the first time in my life that I wasn't on hormonal birth control, that I wasn't pregnant, that I wasn't breastfeeding. And that's when things really, for me, started to magnify. My moods were, wow, out of this world. The best way that I can describe it was I felt like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That's how I talk about it. I was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I was anxious all of the time, but
Mm.
most especially in my luteal phase, that 2 weeks before my period, it just like kicked up 10 notches.
Mhm.
I was struggling with insomnia. I was just overwhelmed, stressed out, the whole nine. My periods themselves, this was the first time that I started to experience really hardcore period problems.
Okay.
For me, started at ovulation with a week of pain, like stabbing pelvic pain for an
Mhm.
entire week when I
Wow.
ovulated. Then the PMS, the Dr. Jekyll, the Mr. Hyde, the anxiety, the overwhelm, the stress. Then my period. And my period was about 10 days. It
Wow.
was heavy. So about 3 to 4 of those days, I was doubling up on tampons and pads, checking every hour to 2 hours, making sure I wasn't leaking. And
Right.
on the times that I remember once working a part-time job in a law firm, I leaked through on the way to work and I had to tie a blazer around my waist. It was the most embarrassed and
Oh,
mortified I think I've ever been in my life. And so that was kind of my period. So I when it all was said and done, I realized that I maybe had one good week out of the month.
mhm.
And that's when I started going to my doctor and pressuring my doctor. This isn't right. This doesn't feel right. I
Right.
feel like there's a bowling ball in my pelvis when I'm
Mhm.
ovulating, and it hurts and it's heavy and it's pressure and it's like
Right.
awfully intense. And there's got to be something wrong. What's wrong? Like, do something. And the answers that I always got were, you're fine. It's just normal. I can give you the birth control pill, or I can give you Tylenol threes. And I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I
Mhm.
don't want to do the birth control. I just had a daughter. I might want to have another kid. Like, I don't want to do birth control again. Um, and I kept going back and begging her, run some tests, do something, like refer me to a specialist, help
Right.
me.
Right.
And then she finally did refer me to an OB. And in the interim, I learned from my mom that she had endometriosis.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's when the light bulb started going off for me, like,
Mhm.
oh my God. So I started researching. And that's actually when I started shifting my career.
Mhm.
Um, and I left the corporate world, went back to school to really focus in on holistic nutrition, to
Mhm.
understand the body physiology, to really understand how everything works and how to
Right.
approach health more naturally versus throwing
Yep.
synthetic chemicals and hormones and stuff.
Right.
Finally got in with my OB, and I was excited because I thought, I'm going to get answers. I'm going to
Right.
get answers. I'm finally going to find out what's going on, and they're going to help me.
Mhm.
And I remember sitting there, I'll never forget. And every time I tell this story, I feel like it was yesterday. It
Mhm.
was like that cold, hard metal table with like the
Mhm.
flimsy little paper sheet on it. And I was wearing like those flimsy little papery gowns that
Right.
they have you wear. And I was
Yeah.
sitting there like trying to like hold it together as much as I could, because it's a very vulnerable
Totally.
position to be in, right?
Yep.
And the OB comes in, doesn't even look at me. She's looking at her computer screen, reading the notes that my family doctor had sent over for her. Didn't ask me any questions. She did a super quick internal exam. And then she said, yeah, I mean, it kind of lines up with endo. So here, take the pill. And I was like, I don't, but that's not what I want. Like,
What do you mean?
I don't want to be put on birth control. I don't want to
Right.
have these synthetic hormones in my body anymore. I had done a lot of research in that time and understood now what that was doing to my body, all of the risk factors, the long-term health consequences. And I didn't want to go that route anymore.
Yep.
And she looked me in the eye and she said to me, this was like the most pivotal moment in my career. And she said to me, that's our first course of action. If you're not going to take it, I can't help you.
Wow. Well, at least she was honest. I mean, at least she didn't string you along, but gee.
Right. I was like, my mind was blown. Like I was so excited because I thought I was finally going to get answers.
Right.
And all she still had for me was birth control. And
Unbelievable.
that for me was the pivotal moment
Right.
that directed me to where I am now, because that led me on the path of discovery, of
Right.
research, of learning, of practicing and implementing on myself first, always,
Right.
and really uncovering the root causes, because
Right.
it's not just a hormonal issue. There
No.
are deeper physiological issues
Right.
that are involved. And
Right.
That really was the pivotal moment that got me to where I am today.
Wow, it sounds very, very similar to my story. I'm like, and I know so many of the women that I talked to, and even at our master class last night where we were talking about I mean, it's the same conversation is happening in doctors' offices. And I'm just like,
Mm,
I'm still blown away that after all of this time, 10 years for me, I don't know
yeah.
how many years for you, but where
Yep.
I'm like, and it's still like, this is why we're doing what we're doing, right?
Yep.
Because there's such still a huge gap in women's healthcare when it
Huge.
comes to addressing hormones. So today we're actually going to be talking about the impact that our gut health has on our moods and what that
Mhm.
connection is, because I know for me it's a huge part of the happy hormones process. It's
Mhm.
an extremely pivotal part of healing the gut brain connection, and I know that that's the same for you with your clients as well. So
Mhm.
let's just dive right in. How does gut health impact our mood? What's the
Oh
connection
my
there?
gosh, so many different ways. So
Everything. Yeah.
it honestly, it seems a little bit cliched, but it really is true. All health begins in the gut. Like
Yeah.
if we're talking specifically about moods, one of the things you mentioned was the gut brain connection, right?
Hmm.
And there's so much emerging research coming out about that connection. And I think the best way to sort of open that up is, I think everybody sort of has this understanding of like your second brain, right? Or that
Yeah.
gut feeling. It's like you have
Hmm.
that gut feeling, right? And we've really discovered, or I shouldn't say we, but researchers, scientists have discovered that we do essentially have like a second brain. Our gut
Right.
microbiome acts as a second brain, communicating with the brain up here in the head. Now, the
Right.
interesting thing is that for many years, it was assumed that the communication went downwards, that the
Right.
brain communicates downwards to the gut.
Yeah.
But what research is really uncovering is that it's actually the reverse.
Right.
90% of the communication is from your gut up to your brain.
Isn't that amazing?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So, right there, when we think about, mood issues or disorders or even hormonal mood fluctuations like the anxiety, depression, emotional volatility, that, when you suddenly get like a little bit of rage for no apparent reason,
No apparent reason.
all right.
Yeah.
It's actually, we think that it's all in our head, right?
Right.
It's actually not. It's our
Mhm.
gut,
Yeah.
right? And it's the
Exactly.
gut communicating upwards.
Right.
So that's one big area. And I think, another is when we think about some of the hormones, even the neurotransmitters that are responsible for our moods. So
Right.
if we think of serotonin, for example, dopamine, GABA, like serotonin is kind of like that feel good, happy
Right.
neurotransmitter. And GABA is like that calming, anti-anxiety sort of neurotransmitter.
Right.
They're produced in the gut. They're
Yep.
synthesized by the good beneficial bacteria in our gut.
Exactly.
So really, the gut is so unbelievably responsible for the way that we feel, for our moods, much more so than our brain, as we have been taught.
Exactly. Well, and this is I feel like we could break this down into 10 like separate segments because there's so many things
So many things.
that we just about the gut brain connection in and of itself. But we think about it like a woman goes into her doctor and she's like, I'm having really bad mood swings. I feel super low. Some women even express feeling suicidal or having suicidal thoughts that they do
Mhm.
not normally have throughout the month, that are not triggered by anything outside. It's just all of a sudden everything feels dark and heavy and blue. They go to the doctor and they are prescribed an antidepressant, or an anti-anxiety medication or
Yeah.
something in that class of medication. And then that's not the real issue. That's addressing kind of the surface level symptom that's being expressed, because like
Mhm.
we talked about, those the neurotransmitters are made in the gut. We get on antidepressants, which have an impact on our liver and the intestinal lining
Mhm.
and the ability for our neurotransmitters. I kind of think of it as they kind of get sticky, almost like they lose their
Right.
producibility over time. And then 3 to 6 months later, they're like, okay, I'm still having anxiety or depression that's now breakthrough, like through my cycle.
Mm.
And it's all because that we were never addressing that root issue to begin
Yes.
with. I know I was not able to go off of antidepressants that were prescribed for my mood swings until I addressed the gut health issues, because I'd been
Mhm.
on chronic antibiotics literally from the time I was probably like 8 or 9 months old for ear infections and strep throat. And I
Yeah.
don't even know. And then I had acne, of course, because my gut was
Mhm.
super not healthy.
Yeah.
And so then they put me on antibiotics for my acne, and then they put me on Accutane for my acne, which
Oh,
like
I've
destroyed
been
my
there.
liver.
Yep.
I was the poster child for hot mess hormone issues. Like I had it all. Trust me, I had night sweats, hot flashes, insomnia, all the things.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
all of it, not all of it, 90% of it was because my gut was super unhealthy. And
Yeah.
so if we look at that, the spectrum of mood issues, right? Where it may start out as a little bit of irritability around ovulation. And
Mhm.
you're probably not even noticing it, because I know for me, I wasn't really tracking my symptoms. I just thought, gosh, I just totally blew up at my husband because he left the cupboard doors open. And I didn't realize, oh, yeah, that's because I was ovulating. And I probably wouldn't have done that if I wasn't having this, shift in my hormones. And then it transfers to 3 days of irritability before your cycle, and then it's five
Mhm.
days of irritability, and then it's rage, and then it's a deep depression. So it's like
Mhm.
there are these symptoms that we have not been trained. You and I are training people, but we
Yep.
have not been trained to pay
Yeah.
attention to those little red flags that start
Mhm.
letting us know that something is off. So, do you want to share a little bit
Mhm.
about what some of those symptoms are that you're kind of teaching your clients to pay
Mhm.
attention to or track?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting because if we're talking moods, for example, um, there's always going to be, so if we think when your period starts, it tends to be when your hormones are at their lowest, like
Yep.
that's natural, right? So you're
Hmm.
going to be a little low on the energy side. You're
Yep.
probably not going to feel all that fantastic.
Hmm.
That's kind of normal, but we shouldn't be feeling, and then maybe it becomes like this gradual progression of, okay, well, I'm a little bit more fatigued today. I'm just going to take a day to rest. Cool. But then it starts to spiral into, I can't get out of bed
Hmm.
for a day. Now I can't get out of bed for 2 days.
Hmm.
And then it becomes, well, now I'm just like, I'm hitting the snooze button like 10 times and I'm
Right.
dragging my butt out of bed. And I actually have seen women, and I've spoken to women who have gotten to the point where they actually have stopped working
Yep.
because they have so flatlined,
Yep.
their energy is so depleted, their moods are so erratic, they just become completely different people and they
Yep.
can't get a grasp on their life, right?
Right.
So it may seem like, if we're talking about these like little red flag symptoms, it's like, it again, I typically see it in the 2 week sort of time
Yep.
frame before a period. And it's sort of like, it starts with a bit of irritability, right?
Right.
It starts with I'll give an example. This was one of my experiences years ago. I was making breakfast for my daughter, and she was 2 at the time. And she came in, she said, what's for breakfast, mommy? And I was just, it was in that phase, and it just set me off, like the simplest question from a 2 year
Yep.
old. And it set me off, and I screamed at her.
Mhm.
And then I was like, whoa, what
What
was
was
that?
that? Yeah.
Who was that? Right. Um, but it's these little red flag moments. Like, it was a simple question. Why did I respond in that way? Right. But then
Yeah.
it became irritability all the time and
Yeah.
anxiety all the time. And it became all encompassing.
Right.
Right. And one thing that I find in the women that I talk to is it becomes a progression,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
We haven't been taught, as you've said, as women, we haven't been taught to listen to our bodies, because
Right.
all of these symptoms, the acne, right? The
Hmm.
acne, the bloating,
Voting is a big
the
one.
irritability,
Hmm.
the anxiety, the depression, the all of the symptoms, right? The
Right.
pain, like all of it. We haven't been taught that that is just our body's way of communicating to us. It's sending us
Hmm.
these little signals like, hey, It's like knocking on the door. Hey, something's up.
Right.
Can you let me in and help me
Listen,
out, please?
listen, pay
Right?
attention.
Like, listen
Listen,
to
Linda.
me, right? Totally. We haven't been taught that. I remember when I was in the thick of it, I remember thinking, what is wrong with my body? Why
Yep.
can't my body just work? Right. And I
100%.
was so angry with my body. And, in actuality, I just wasn't listening.
Yep.
I didn't understand that my body was actually trying to help me.
Right.
And
Well,
so
and
it's
it
those,
doesn't help that we've been conditioned then
yeah.
also when we go to the doctor, when they say, oh, I
Hmm.
can't help you, or oh, that's normal, or your
Yeah.
whole family has a history of endometriosis or having
Yeah.
periods, so that's just genetic. So it's like we have this double-sided
Yeah.
conditioning that has prevented us from actually being able to say, I should be listening to
Hmm.
my body. Does that make sense? Like
Absolutely.
I didn't listen until I was having panic attacks. I was losing weight. I lost my milk supply, like
Hmm.
big issues. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you with that, but I wanted,
No,
because I know that's a big part of the problem that I'm seeing
I
um,
agree.
with that. So continue.
No, I agree with you 100%. We've been conditioned to believe that it's normal,
Mhm.
that it is just something to be expected. I mean, if you look even on social media, and I will be the first to admit that I used to post these memes and I don't anymore because I realized how damaging they were. But you
Mhm.
think about, and I remember there's one in particular, it's Kermit sitting in front of a mirror, and the
Mhm.
caption is, me when I'm PMSing and I feel bloated and I've got the cravings and I'm irritable and all of the things, right?
Right.
And I used to use those memes. And then I started to realize that I was actually contributing to the problem
Yep.
because it normalizes it,
Yep.
right? And 100%, when I went to my doctors, it was, oh, you're just genetically predisposed.
Yep.
So too bad. So sad. It's the cards that you've been dealt, right?
Suck it up. Yep.
Right. Or it's just normal. But
Yep.
those literally were the messages that I got my
Mhm.
entire life, right? Both
Right.
from my family, like my mom, my grandmother, and also my
Yep.
medical team, right? It's normal.
Exactly. Just deal
Deal
with
with
it.
it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So
100%.
we don't know. Like we as women, we don't know any other way.
Right.
We're not taught any other way.
Exactly, which is why we're doing, why we are so vocal about like
Absolutely.
these issues, that you don't have to feel this way, and teaching women how to pay attention to those signs and what things specifically to look for. So when
Mhm.
you are, let's say, you're talking to somebody who may or may not end up working with you, or just in conversation, what are some things that you look for when you're having a conversation with somebody that lets you know, like, you know what, we're really dealing with a gut issue, like, and we
Mhm.
really need to pay attention to that. So I think it would be helpful to share, like, what are some of
Mhm.
those symptoms that you see that are like, okay, we really need to start paying attention to this.
For sure. So definitely anytime that I'm working with a woman or even talking with a woman, whether or
Yeah.
not she decides to come and work with me,
Hmm.
if she's telling me that she's struggling with mood issues, anxiety, irritability, depression, whether that is connected, if she's made, because oftentimes they haven't necessarily
Right.
always made that connection to their cycle.
Right.
Sometimes they have, sometimes they haven't. Anything to do with mood, I'm immediately thinking about the gut.
Right.
Other things that they'll tell me, I mean, there's the obvious digestive stuff, right? Like they've got indigestion, bloating is a big one that I hear
Bloating's
a
a big
lot.
one. Yep.
Constipation, diarrhea, heartburn,
Yep.
gassiness, those types of things. Like those are sort of like the more obvious digestive
Right.
issues. Even things like
Your
headaches,
headaches. Yep.
migraines, joint pain, muscle
Hmm.
stiffness. Um, because it's again, going back to sort of what I said earlier, it sounds cliched, but all health begins in the gut,
Right.
right?
Yep.
But those are definitely some of those symptoms outside of like the period stuff
Right.
that I really start thinking deeply about. Okay, we gotta look at what's happening in your gut.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And then starting to peel back those layers and look at what are the things that are influencing your gut health,
Mhm.
because for every woman, those facets or those factors are going to be a little bit different. Like,
Yes.
we all have stress, right? But
Yeah.
how you process your stress is going
Mhm.
to impact, you can be taking the best probiotics in the world, but if you're not getting good sleep and you're not addressing your
Yep.
stress, you're going to get a partial, like, results. So that's where we
Yeah.
start. And I know it's the same for you too, where it's not just looking at, okay, they need to have more beneficial bacteria in their gut.
Mm.
It's, are there inflammatory factors in their diet?
Yes.
Are there emotional inflammatory factors like
Mhm.
chronic stress or, I would call them trapped emotions, sounds kind of weird, but
Mm-hmm.
unprocessed emotions
Yeah. Yeah.
having huge impact
Big
on the
time.
gut. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So with that, those symptoms are kind of I find, at least in the women that I talk to, are the most ignored. So a lot
Hmm.
of times they've been having these symptoms for a really, really, really long time. And it's not until they start to have, painful periods, or like, I just almost divorced my husband before my
Hmm.
period because I was mad that he didn't do the dishes, that it's like something they're
That's
not
not okay.
connecting it until it gets to
Yeah.
that point. And
Yeah.
so, but really there are so many other micro symptoms
Yeah.
within that let us know this has been a long-standing problem.
Hmm.
And at the same time, I don't know if this is true for you, but once we start working on that gut brain connection, the healing that happens
Oh, it's
rapidly
incredible.
is
Yeah.
like
Big
blows my
time.
mind. Like,
Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
not have, it took me like 3 or 4 years, I would say, to where I felt like my hormones were in a really good place.
Hmm.
I didn't really have a process, I didn't have like a step-by-step plan. It was kind of all over the place.
Hmm.
But when we have that process in place where it's like step by step, we are peeling back the layers, seeing how quickly the body wants to heal and how
Hmm.
quickly women start feeling better is just,
It's
it's what I live for.
incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
So when you are, so we talked a little bit about like the symptoms of an unhealthy gut. Um, I know that a lot of women I talk to, and part of this just has to do with the information that's out there that can be really confusing. They feel really frustrated because it's like, okay, but I eat clean. I exercise every day and my mood is still in the toilet. So what do you typically say about that?
Hmm.
Because for me, we have a very specific approach to
Yeah.
like how we address nutrition. And I think it's the same for you. So how do you kind of
Hmm.
approach that topic and that frustration? Because I remember feeling that way too.
Totally. So, and it's interesting because I hear that too. Well, I already eat clean, so I don't know what else to do. Or
Yeah.
the other one I get a lot too, especially when I'm talking about the gut, is, well, I've taken a probiotic and
Mhm.
then I'll either get it didn't help me or it made me feel worse,
Yep.
right?
100%.
Um, so I hear that a lot. So when it comes to, well, I already eat clean, so why don't I feel better?
Mhm.
A clean diet absolutely is foundational,
Yep.
but you could be eating the most plentiful, nutrient dense, clean diet that's available out there. By the way, I don't subscribe to any one particular diet per se.
Either. Yeah.
It's just about eating real whole foods in
Yep.
my books.
Yep.
You could be eating the best possible diet, but if your digestive system, if the terrain in your gut is inflamed, if there is, for example, an overgrowth of pathogenic organisms,
Yep.
if the intestinal microvilli, I'm getting a little bit technical now, but those little finger-like projections in your intestines, if they're
Mhm.
damaged, they're not going to be able to absorb any of those nutrients. And
Yep.
those are the foundational building blocks for our neurotransmitters, for our hormones.
Right.
So it really goes beyond just thinking about eating clean. Now, that's not to say that eating clean isn't important. It
Yeah.
absolutely
Right.
is. It's the foundation, because you
Right.
can't heal your gut if you're eating all of the processed, prepared, packaged, and fried stuff, right? It's
Right.
frankenfoods.
Yep.
So you have to be eating clean, but there's more to it than that. We've got
Yeah.
to look at, what is the condition of your microbiome, the bacteria that reside in your gut?
Yep.
What is the condition of that bacteria? Is there damage to the mucosal lining?
Right.
Is there inflammation? Are you actually absorbing? Are you breaking down? Is there
The
enough
food that you're eating.
enzymatic activity to
Yep.
break down the foods that you're eating
Right.
to be able to absorb it? So
Exactly.
it's more than just the food, and it's more than just the probiotic,
Right.
right? because
100%.
it might
And
not be a probiotic issue.
exactly. And then this is where working with a practitioner that understands this stuff can be really helpful, because I've
Mm.
had, I can't even tell you, so many women who have been like, I started a probiotic and I ended up having diarrhea,
Yep.
or I started a probiotic and I ended up having constipation. And typically that has to do with the quality and the
Yep.
strains and like all of the facets of that particular probiotic, but also what it can indicate is some of those other underlying factors of why is your body having a hard time with beneficial bacteria, because there
Mm-hmm.
can be a lot of different reasons for that. And so
Mm-hmm.
for us, for me in particular, obviously like gut testing is awesome, but also we can tell that pretty easily by
Oh
symptoms.
yeah.
Like, how
Yeah.
are they responding to dietary changes? How are they
Yeah.
responding to stress management, which I hate that term
I
because
know.
it's true, but I'm like, there's got to be a better way to say this,
Yeah.
because I don't want to manage my stress. I
Yeah.
want to process it appropriately,
Yes.
in a way that doesn't harm my physiology. So I don't know. I'll come up with a fancy term at some point, but just to clarify, I hate that term.
I do
Um,
too, believe me.
so yeah, so with that though, it's like we're taking that information, those foundation of clean eating is great. Everybody needs to eat clean. Everybody should have pesticide-free food. Everybody should be getting as much organic
Mhm.
material as is physically an option for them. However, that's the foundation, but to actually target the root causes and target our hormone health and our moods, that takes a very specific approach.
Mhm.
And it really does take a trained eye to be able to say,
Yes.
I'm watching you, I'm looking over your shoulder as you move through this process, and I want to make sure that you are responding. Because if
Yes.
you're not, that doesn't mean we've hit a dead end. It means that we need to change our approach.
Yes.
And for me, at least, I've seen, you probably have a similar thing where there's a lot of mistrust with the medical community and a lot of mistrust
Mhm.
of themselves. And so a lot of this process of working with a coach, myself or somebody like Stephanie, is actually learning to trust yourself again. And
Yeah.
it's learning to trust you as the practitioner to say, hey, I'm with you on this. Like, we're going to
Mhm.
figure this out. You have not hit a dead end.
Mhm.
It just means there's something else going on here that we need to look at. Is it a
Mhm.
terrain issue? Is it an inflammation issue? Is it like literally, a restoring the lining issue? So I love that you tackled that, because that it's a big missing piece. And this is where I might irritate some people a little bit. So I apologize in advance. But this is where I get really frustrated at the over supplementing that happens
Mhm.
because there are a lot of issues that happen in this phase of healing that people are throwing supplements at, and it makes it worse.
Yep.
And so I get really frustrated with that, because I'm like, oh, that's part of the problem. Just stop. Let's
Yeah.
peel back the layers and figure out what's going on. So I love that you look into all of that stuff when you're working with somebody and really want to make sure, are they responding? If they're not responding, then why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it doesn't mean we've hit a dead end. It just means that we need to figure out
Yep.
what some of the pieces are and how we can address that issue.
Exactly.
So it's complicated, but the body wants to heal. And
It
so I
absolutely
love,
does.
yep. And the gut healing phase is probably one of my most favorite, because that's where we tend to see the most shifts happen in mood and
Mhm.
energy and libido and all of that stuff. So
Big time.
yeah. So I know that we have talked a lot about the gut. Do you have any parting words, any encouragement that you would like to give for women
Mm.
who are maybe, standing in the position that you were at, where you're like, my life is kind of falling apart here in the hormone department? What would you say to those women who are watching?
Yeah. I think one of the themes that I come back to often is we as women, as a society, even, we need to take back ownership and control over our own health. I think we've given up that power a
Right.
lot to our medical team. I know I did. And I
Mhm.
don't want to, paste a big blanket statement that everybody's done this, but And I know I did. I trusted blindly whatever my doctor told me for
Right.
years, right?
Yep.
That's the environment that I grew up in. That was the society I grew up in,
Yep.
and I think that that was very damaging on
Hmm.
my body, on my physiology, on my health.
Right.
And when I started to ask the questions, and when I started to question the methodology and the old way of doing
Right.
things, which largely was to take synthetic hormones, birth control, have a surgery, ablation, a hysterectomy, when I
Right.
started to ask those questions and I started to dig deeper and understand that there's another way, there's another
Right.
approach, it actually allowed me to take my power back.
Hmm.
And I think there's something so powerful about that when
Right.
you can really take ownership and control of your health, of your,
Right.
I hate to say destiny, but
It is though.
it
Yeah.
is, you have control over what happens in your body and with
Right.
your body. And ultimately it comes down to a choice.
Yep.
How do you want to
Absolutely.
feel? And how do you want to get there?
And I think that you saying that, and I feel like I repeat it all the time, but it's because we need that constant reminder to undo like some of the,
Yes.
like I said, the conditioning that's happened, where it's like, no, I can feel better and I'm going to take the reins back on this. It doesn't mean I have to do it myself, but it just means that I am going to say I'm not tolerating this anymore and I'm going to pursue something that's better. And I
Yeah.
love the way that you inspire so many women to do that and take charge of their health and lead the charge, and then them getting, their hormones back to where they can be a present mom and
Yeah.
be a present wife and, whatever other realms that they are operating in, to do it well and to feel their best. And so I just want to thank you so much. I feel like I could pick your brain for hours.
Oh, my
Was
pleasure.
this was so fun to have you on here and just explain that kind of the piece of gut health that um it's really easy to get confused with all of the information
Yeah,
out there. So I love the way that you shared about that, and thank you so much for your time today and
my
sharing
pleasure.
your expertise. And I'm sure we'll be having you back in here at some point in the near future. But I hope you have a great rest of your day and we
Thank
will be in
you.
touch. Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks for
Thank
having me.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Bye
Bye
for
bye.
now.